again, I've said this before. I've been saying this all through this episode, but shouts out to Marcus in the GOAT Talk podcast. I was just on the podcast the other day talking about the NBA Finals, and Marcus said something that really sparked something in me. We were talking about legacy talk. We were talking about he pretty much asked me, do I think it's like dumb that we talk about, or he said we should stop talking about legacy talk because it's we should just stop doing that. And for my unpopular topic, so shouts out to you, Marcus. My unpopular topic of the day, and I said this on his podcast, but I'm going to say it here. It's not the fact that we are talking about legacies. Everyone has a legacy. When we talk about players like Charles Barkley, one of the greatest basketball players to ever play. However, one thing that's said about his legacy is he's never won a championship. LeBron James' legacy will go down as arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. Same thing as Michael Jordan. It's like sometimes your legacy is so great, it just negates a lot of negative stuff. For instance, we talk about Michael Jordan. Nobody talks about, I think he only won I think he was 1-9, one playoff game before Scottie Pippen came. We talk about how great LeBron James is outside of people like Skip Bayless. Nobody really talks about what happened with the Dallas Mavericks series. Now, LeBron James has been to 10 straight, or was 10 straight NBA Finals, but nobody talks about that. Legacy is what you leave behind, what we remember you as. Steph Curry's legacy will go down as the greatest shooter of all time, in my opinion. A lot of people say Vince Carter's legacy is the greatest dunker of all time. It's just where you leave legacies. And what I think needs to happen is we need to slow down on the legacy talk with players so early on. And what do I mean by that? All this week, we've heard who is this championship legacy, whose legacy is more at stake for this championship, Steph Curry or Jason Tatum. Or we talked about, when Luka did games 5 tarnish Luka's legacy. What is Ja Morant's legacy after X, or after losing to Golden State? Yes, these young players will leave a legacy. That's just how it's going to be. But I don't think we need to start writing it now. I mean, think about it. We don't know what's going to happen with Luka. We don't know what's going to happen with Trae Young. We don't know what's going to happen with Ja Morant. We don't know what's going to happen with Zion Williamson. We don't know what's going to happen with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Jordan Poole. There's a lot of young players. We need to let their careers blossom out. We need to let their careers play out. We don't need to continue to talk about legacy, and they're under 25. They still, Lord willing, have 10 to 15 years left. A lot can happen in 10 to 15 years. Don't believe me? Look at Steph Curry's career. Remember how he was on the trade block a lot of times due to his ankle problems. You look at how we looked at Steph Curry the beginning of his career with the injuries and playing for an organization that couldn't get right as far as wins with Golden State. And now look how it is. Imagine if we would have just stopped his legacy after year 3 or year 4 or year 5. We would not have this Stephen Curry, or we would be blind to this Stephen Curry. Imagine who was another player that Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd came to the league, couldn't shoot to save his life. He left the league as one of the greatest three-point shooters ever. What I'm saying is, and I guess my unpopular topic of the day is, we need to really chill out with this whole legacy talk, especially with younger talent, because we don't know what's going to happen. What happens if Ja Morant really starts developing a three-point shot? What happens if Luka really starts playing defense? Same thing as Trae Young. What happens if Zion gets his body right? Like all this stuff that we're talking is going to change, and we're going to forget about this. So I think we don't need to put the pressure on. What is Jason Tatum's legacy, bro? Jason Tatum has been in the league for what 3, 4, 5 years. Chill out on that, man. We need to chill out. The legacy talk does not need to start so early because we don't know what these players are going to matriculate into. That's all I'm saying.